You are listening to The Growth Signal. My name is Alyssa Nolte,
And my name is Dawn Farrow.
and we're going to get right into it. Dawn, what is your hot take?
My hot take today is that the future is live.
Okay, I am desperate to hear more about this because what do you mean by that? What do you mean the future is live?
Well, I work in the experience economy as a marketer, and I run several businesses that work with marketers and communication specialists who work across live experiences, everything from theatre to immersive to museums, to music, to festivals, to consumer events. And what's so interesting about the experience economy is that it is actually one of the fastest growing industries around the world. So much so that the forecasts right now say that by 2028, the industry will have got to a value of $12 trillion. And the reason my hot take is the future is live is because actually we talk so much about technology and screens and all of those things. And yet all of the data points towards people wanting to experience things in person more than ever before.
I honestly couldn't agree more. And I think it extends to more than just the way that, like, not just screens and not just like being on our technology and our phones. This year for Christmas, I asked my parents asked me what my kids wanted for Christmas. And I said, "Oh, we have so much stuff. Can you just buy us experiences? Can you get us a pass to the local baseball facility? Can you get us tickets to this thing to go do something?" Because we not only are so attached to our screens in our household, but we have so much stuff. And what we don't have enough of, in my opinion, was experiences.
There we go. Exactly. Like we crave them more than ever exactly to your point, because we have a lot of stuff, but also because actually as humans, we actually crave people and creating memories. It's really interesting that post COVID, the one of the quickest industries not to return back to business, but to get back on its feet was actually experiences, because people knew absolutely it was all very well organized in terms of where we all had to stand, and predominantly it was outdoor events. But that's what we all chose to do immediately when we could.
One of the things that I also think too, from purely from a technological perspective, is that when you think about the debate around art and creativity and video and content creation as it relates to AI and generative intelligence, I think too, your point about the live nature of it is a real conflict. Like you can't, AI is not yet, I won't say it won't ever, but not yet creating in real time. We're not going to concerts where the artist is AI generated and the music is AI generated. We're going to an in-person event and experiencing a real, authentic human experience. And sometimes I actually recently discovered there's a bunch of artists on Spotify who are actually 100% AI generated, from the singer to the music to everything that we're experiencing. And I was talking with someone about this, and she's like, I love the songs, I love the music, I love to listen to them. My only like real frustration there is I will never get to see this artist live.
Exactly. And there's something very interesting there. We talk in marketing terms, we talk a lot about fandom. And of course, I mean, sport is probably our best example of fandom, but I think music, runs beautifully in parallel. But fandom happens across the experience economy. It could be, fans of a celebrity chef, fans of, an actor, for example. And I think that the power of fandom, not only as the sort of personal craving to have a relationship with that celebrity in some way, but also the importance of fandom in order to commercialize an experience. So the example you've given, though technology wise, super interesting, the opportunity to commercialize that actually is a really it's a really, tough one for the people behind the AI creation to really to battle with. And as you hinted, that no doubt solutions will be found. But nevertheless, even if there is some sort of experience AI on stage, whatever that might look like, the actual relationship you're building there is with the other people next to you in that kind of combined experience, that feeling you get when you're with people who feel aligned with the same thing that you're loving. It's extraordinarily powerful.
Yeah, there's something to say about the human experience as the nucleus of everything that we're doing, right? The center of the way that we experience the world, because you're right. Like I went to a festival in October, and it was like 3 days of music outside in the desert of Las Vegas, and I am far too old to be out there for that many days in the desert. However, you could definitely tell when an artist had a fandom of people who were just so excited to see this person, this band, this group live and in person versus people who were just kind of standing there and like not really enjoying the experience. My experience was less and was muted because the people around me were more muted and not necessarily into it versus like bands I didn't even care about, but everyone around me was so excited to see them. That energy transferred to me, even though I didn't know anything about this band or really care about their music.
Exactly it. And it's why when we talk about it in marketing terms, we talk a lot about social proof. And we talk a lot about more traditionally, perhaps what we would have called word of mouth. And it's why, for example, social media can be particularly powerful because it's a sharing of a feeling we have about something. And it's why when we are talking about that feeling and that positive word of mouth, that we can see sales across experiences, be it, let's take even just a musical, for example, in the West End or on Broadway. You can account for a 30% sales uplift simply because of that fandom, that positive experience and how it makes someone feel. And so I need to tell you because I want you to feel like that as well.
Right. We want, especially people we love and care about, like if something feels good and we enjoy it, we want to share that and spread that. It's like human experience and joy and excitement is contagious, as is frustration and poor experience, right? If we, the same is true if you have a bad experience at a restaurant, you're going to let people know so that they don't have that same bad experience.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. The same is exactly true. Though interestingly, though, what we see is that there's an increasing distrust of some of those sites where people, especially certain sites where you'll just see there's like a strange flurry of negativity, and it tends to actually even out over time. Because of course it can just be one person's particularly poor experience and they act in necessarily a dramatic way, but in the way that their behavior is deemed as the right behavior, but perhaps it was a little over the top. But my job ultimately is to train and support the experience economy marketers who are day to day grappling with, how do I want my customers to feel, my audiences to feel, so that they absolutely transfer that to their community, and ultimately we sell more tickets.
For businesses or people who work in businesses who aren't necessarily what I would call a traditional experience company, right? Like software, banking, right? Those more boring companies. Do you think they have a place in the experience economy? And are there lessons we can learn from Broadway and West End and those truly like what we think of traditional experiential approaches to business?
I, I think that interestingly, there is more of a connection to what I would describe as experience marketing, which is what I do. There is a much bigger connection between um, those businesses, say a tech business, and my industry than ever before, and that's because exactly to our point, emotion sells. So we see banks, for example, getting very cuddly, right? We see them creating warmth in their advertising. We see them creating an emotional, especially in holidays, right? It's all about the connection of family and coming together, and just a subtle use of a credit card, purchasing all of those great gifts and how wonderful it makes everyone feel. Snap, that's about experience. We see businesses. I mean, this one of my favorite things last year, of course, we spoke about AI and the speed at which the markets have responded. which I'm sure will even out. But what was most interesting last year is that one of our biggest AI tech companies created an in-person pop-up experience so that we could somehow get to know the feel and the emotion behind the AI. I just love it. I find it fascinating that they recognize marketers, right? They recognize that they need to build, because we can say yes or no to tech. What they realized was we want people to feel something when it comes to our AI. That way it'll be harder to leave us, because there are other choices in the market.
And two, I think that it's it's so difficult though to make those experiences feel authentic because I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of relationships with vendors who are trying to force a happy experience for me, and I'm just not feeling it, right? They're trying to create something that feels like they saw it on, someone else's commercial or they got an idea in the boardroom, but it's not really authentic to their brand or who they are. So, how do
Yeah.
we square that as people who are trying to create experiences, who are trying to create something that feels connective and authentic without losing that uncanny valley feeling that our customers will get if it doesn't align with who we are and what we do?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point because, of course, the joy of the experience economy is that it is truly authentic. You can say, "This is how I'm going to make you feel," and then you do come and feel it. Whereas, particularly with our what we might call our heritage brands on the high street, or and I think banking is an amazing example because it is so emotional, like it's emotionally charged, and yet the data suggests that we, even if we're sat with a bad banking experience, because maybe our parents banked there, it's really hard to shift. It's hard to move our money, and it's all a bit complicated. And so then we get stuck. We don't move as humans because even though it's like a crap relationship, we just sort of sit there, which would never happen with live experiences. As we were saying, we'd get all the bad reviews, and people would never come. Um, so I think that in the broader marketplace, the crucial thing is exactly to your point is this idea of authenticity, and is this idea of it doesn't matter how good the marketing team is in those businesses. If you do not have an alignment with your operations team, if you can't bring them in on the journey, if you cannot reduce that friction from great advertising campaign through to website, through to social media, through to being in store, then maybe there's a much bigger conversation to be had with the board and actually almost reverse engineering it so that you get the product right, and then you will definitely be authentic by the time you create that experience, emotionally pulling piece of content.
One of the things that I can immediately hear, from people that I've talked to who run businesses and have marketing departments is a hesitation around live events because there's this perception that anything that's digital is cheaper, less risky, less prone to stress and overwhelm. It's easier to do. So help us understand, like, let's make the case for live events and assuage some of those fears around what it means to put together a real experience, especially in the real world, if you will.
Yeah. So I'd start off by answering that question by saying, um, I have been marketing experiences for more than 20 years, and it is harder now than it has ever been. And I'm using exactly the same toolbox, the same suite of advertising and marketing levers are available to me as are available to, anybody marketing anywhere. Um, and so therefore I know just how incredibly hard it is and how incredibly unpredictable any of it is. All of the ad platforms, it's all under scrutiny right now. None of it. You can't go into any boardroom and guarantee a single thing right now. Um, Consequently, it means that the idea that you might create something live or in person in some way, I mean, you've just taken the risk out. The risk is literally already there, right? The risk is do more of the same and be fairly unsure. I have to say, it will be quite anxiety, pushing, but you probably, I don't know, like you'd manage, you'd be all right, and you'd probably start looking for another job because you'd be bored. Um, so if it's risky anyway, why not think about what the in-person version could be? I would also say that I have a live in-person confex that I run every single year in London. And it's interesting to me working in live that the way I decided to want to communicate with my community was by creating an in-person live experience. And the risks are absolutely gigantic, but actually, because of the strategic thinking behind it, and because I know what it is to build community, because I know what it is to sell tickets, it's actually much more fun and really perhaps less risky than just thinking, let's spend, tens of thousands on Meta.
If someone is hearing this and they're hearing our call to action to explore not only live events and in-person events, but more of that experiential approach to their marketing and how they connect with their customers, what is the one thing you would have them start doing right away?
Is a brilliant question. Do you know what? I would get them to start. If you're not a marketer, if you're not constantly screen grabbing, right? Or you're not a founder, if you're also, and if you're a founder and a marketer, like your phone is full of screen grabs. Um, and that's what I would say every time you see an in-person something, like just take a snap of it, because what you'll end up with is a really interesting overview as to how different experiences are positioning themselves and how they talk about themselves. And you'll also, you'll get this wonderful suite of assets where you'll go from something almost like, an in-person personalized Pilates in, class, 15 people in a room and all the warmness of that, through to some, big sporting event, 20,000 in the crowd. And it's all about the noise and the energy. But just, you'll have this wonderful suite. Start there, have a look at it, see how it makes you feel. And then understand how you want your customers to feel, and start there, and start small, right? Like there's no demand to have to start with the event that's going to attract 10,000 people.
I think both of those things are really important just to like double click and restate for the listeners. One, I love that you commented, how do you want your customers to feel when they're coming across this, right? There's a temptation to copy the things that our competitors are doing or the companies that we admire are doing. And it's important to remember that their customers are not your customers and that you are not your customer. And so how can you take yourself out of your own experiences and really look at it through the lens of how your customer and how you want them to feel when they experience, when they see it for the first time. But then also, no shame in starting small, right? Like it could start up as a meetup of 15 people and then grow over time organically. You don't have to do a Super Bowl, because I'm in the US, Super Bowl level of approach to this
No,
event in order to find success and find value in the activity and the exercise.
that's it. That's it. And do you know what? When it comes to overlaying branding and things, like sometimes less is more. We see that a lot. We see that a lot through social media, in terms of just don't put the logo on, just leave it off. Everyone know, they'll find you, just take it off. And maybe you just take it down a notch when it comes to the branding, because if you make people feel the right way, that you're building something far more powerful.
I couldn't agree more with that. So we are going to leave that right there. Considering all of the people that you know or aspire to know, who else is out there? Who else should we be paying attention to?
I thought about this a lot, and this my answer is going to be extraordinarily frustrating, because at my heart, I believe the answer is community. I believe that um, our ability to listen more to everybody within community who has many different viewpoints and to hear those without passing comment, but to take them on. And I'm talking any community. It could be, could be customer community, or in my case, it's the marketing community I run. To listen and to value the importance of opinion and how it shapes groups of people to become better overall, I think is something I feel very passionate about.
And if someone is really connecting with you, they want to learn more, they want to join your community, where can they find you online?
Yes. So my name is Dawn Farrow, and you'll find me on LinkedIn. Or if you'd like to find me on Instagram, I'm dawn.onsale group. And On Sale Group is the business that I run, the in-person Confex, and we also have a in-person training masterclass, which it looks like we may also be making online so that we can include what is an incredible following from the US.
And you can find me at Alyssa Nolte on LinkedIn. You'll know it's the right one if you see Notorious Plant Killer in my headline. You can also find me on Substack, search Alyssa Likes to Talk, or grab the link to my Substack in the show notes. Dawn, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing this unique perspective. And I love the call to action to focus on how do we reimagine our digital first, screen first world as a human experience and reconnecting with who we are at our core, which is human beings just looking for connection.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was great to chat.